pre-competition routine which may be designed for our athletes. That's what we will learn, and how to enhance our performance on competition day. So this is the framework of entire talk which we will be discussing in the subsequent slides. Now, if you look at our India, our talent identification lies in the history and our our Vedas and Gitas and Upanishads, which has been given by our ancient history. So talent identification, if you look at, is an ongoing process, and talent is measured by the rate of increment in the training situation. So whatever training if you impart, and if that training can help you grow and improve your performance, then we can say that you are moving in the right direction. So if you look at whether the old story of how Sri Krishna, God Krishna has really guided Arjuna when he asked question what I should do when I see my seniors in front of me. Whether it was the story of Eklavya and Dronacharya, who had idoled Dronacharya as his guru and start practicing Dhanur Vidya. So this is how we had looked at the talent, and there is always a belief of student in the teachers. Guru Shishya Parampara, that's what we follow. And that's why it is very important for the Indian coaches to know that what has been required to raise the performance of their Shishya or their students who are under them. So today's world is an ever-changing and dynamic world of sports, and we expect the coaches to know the different aspects and different sciences which involved in raising your budding talented athletes. Whether it is the knowledge from the organization and management or sports administration, whether it's the knowledge which you require from the sports medicine, whether it's strength and conditioning or sports psychology. We expect that coaches should know a little bit of all these things so that he could know what and how his athlete is, and how what are the steps we can take him to achieve the greater heights. Now, coming to know your athlete, before you know your athlete, you can know your athlete better if you can know this particular model of long-term athlete development, which has been adopted by Canadian Sports for Life. Now, if you look at this particular model, this model has three basic requirements, or the three primary components, which are physical literacy, which is at the base and foundation of any model. And if you want your child, you should introduce your child to see that whether he can actively participate in physical activities. So this is the age group from where you start, from 0 to 6 years, where you want your child to be active for life and active for sports. And once he learned about the physical literacy, fundamental body movements, fundamental skills, whether it is locomotor skills, whether it is non-locomotor skills, whether it is manipulative skills, body management skills, this is what every child should learn in this particular foundation of your sports. Once that physical literacy has been learned and all the fundamental movements are been adopted by a child, he raised to the next level, that is pathways to excellence. Whether he choose to play certain sports, or to train or learn to train certain sports. And then there is a stage where they reach 12 to 15 years. That is an exact stage where a child decides to train or training to train. Whether he decides whether I want to go into the sports, or whether this is the time I should leave this sports and come for an active for live sports. So this is the stage most of our Indian athletes drop out from the regular sports training. Now, if you look at this three training stages, at the end of first stage, first three stages, youngsters can decide to participate in excellence pathways, where they want to go higher up to the layer as per what they have achieved till now at that stage. And either they if the parents or coaches know that this particular athlete don't have that ability to reach the podium, or don't have that ability or mental or physical ability to reach that level, then they can decide whether this athlete should remain in the sports, but he should take this as a active for life activity which will help in this later life. So these are certain things which should be kept in the mind when we, really prepare an athlete or a individual for the higher sports performance. Now, there's a one very important philosophy of coaching which we need to understand as a coaches for the future. Is I'm giving you this philosophy of rampage. Okay, and this particular philosophy is well explained. If you will see, each word which has been said here is rampage, is RAMPAGE. If you spell it like this, so R, if you start as a raise, A as activate, M as mobilize, P potentiate, A activity, G for games, and E for evaluation. So this is the full form of rampage. And if you look at each part of this particular philosophy, we need to see that a coaching framework can be developed through this rampage philosophy. So if you want to develop your athlete, first you start raising your athlete by developing their body and muscles as per the activity which you want to get involved in. Target your quality in locomotor and object control skills. That's what is required at raising the athlete. You must activate their key working muscles which would help them playing that particular sports, and this is the stage where you should target their stability, strength, and mobility while working on their skills. M starts for mobilizing. Mobilizing is how you work on their joints, because most of the injuries occurs when you don't prepare their joints, range of motion, and their strength and stability of the muscles. Working according with strength and stability, we should also work on their flexibility and range of motion of joints. That will help them learn their skills in a better manner. P stands for potentiate, which says that you must increase your intensity and use the fit principles when you are training them for the sports skills. Also, you must target at this particular age the speed, power, and agility which is required to play that particular sports. Once they cross this particular stage, we must aim their activities for tactical and tactical focus for the sessions, which requires that their skills and strategies should be implemented in the game. And this is the stage where potential athletes should be prepared with the power, speed, and agility, and also focuses on their fundamental movement skills as well as sport specific skills which can be utilized into the game. So this is the stage where we implement our fundamental and sport specific skills into the tactical situations. So suppose you teach dribbling in basketball. So what we do is we first give them a ball control with certain drills with the hands, and then we start tell them, when they got a ball control with their hands, we ask them to move with the ball, basketball. Once they start moving with the basketball, then we go into the tactics of how we can use for layup, and how you can use your fundamental skills of running with the ball and going for a layup. So this is the complex, simple to complex activity which we achieve through this tactical focus on the sessions which we had discussed. Then comes your games, because applying these tactics into the game is the most important part, because you fail to prepare a player if he is unable to use the basic movements and basic fundamental skills into the game situation. So this is where we have to also see that the athlete is also prepared to play that particular sports for that particular duration of time which it is required. So we need to develop their particular endurance and metabolic conditioning of the body, so that they can participate in that particular sports with that technical skills which is needed to be succeeded in the sports. And after, at last, we should evaluate the situation, what we had aimed that particular athlete for, whether we will be able to achieve those tactics and the skills which are been applied in the game. Otherwise, we have to evaluate and rework on these. So this is one of the philosophies which coaches can use in the near future for developing their athletes. Now, once you started developing your athletes, the better you started knowing your athletes. And knowing your athletes also helps you build up a competition routine. And that's what is the point of discussion today in this particular topic. So a pre-performance routine which we are talking about, or a competition routine which we are talking about today, is actually a sequential task which is relevant to your thoughts and actions, which an athlete engages in a systematically prior to his or her performance of a specific sports skill. So whenever athletes who is going to perform a competition, or whether performing a specific sports skill, how his thought, mind, and action gets acclimatized in a systematic way is what the competition routine means. Now, when we talk about this particular definition of competition routine, it highlights three important components of pre-performance. The first component is cognition, which says what your thoughts are before the competition. If your thoughts are positive, your output will be positive. What should be your behavior or action which is needed before the competition, which can really help you achieve what you want. And last is whether you had done your actions which are task specific. So we will discuss all these three different components one by one. Now, your competition routine follows with something which we say that you might have seen the big athletes, performing competition routines with specific tasks, which are either closed self-paced skills, as discussed by Singer in 2000, or Cohen. They are the sports scientists who have defined these closed-paced, self-paced skills. You might have seen most of the individual athletes, individual gymnasts, or basketball players. They use free throw shooting, or before the golf competition they go for a golf putting, or the gymnastic, they are performing their gymnastic performance or the skills or specific tasks which they want to prepare. You might have also seen during this Commonwealth game or Birmingham 2022 sports event, where you might have seen our weightlifters who were practicing the similar clean and jerk and snatch drill with the lighter weights. So these are certain close self-paced skills which are needed to be performed as a competition routine or before the competition. There are certain skills which are closed skills, which are more stable in nature and are done in most predictable environment with very clear defined beginning and end. Now, which are the closed skills? Now, closed skills are some skills which are more stable. We know that the same result will come after this particular skill. Suppose you want to pass the ball, and you want to pass the ball to a certain distance to your certain player, and you practice that pass again and again, and you know that it is to be into a predictable environment that this pass has to be performed. You might also have seen cricketers using catching the ball, and they are using a gloves in their hands, so that they are making the environment more stable, and they are using a slip catches technique, so that when the situation comes, you are ready for that particular skill. So this is close skills where you are not going with the exact pace and intensity which is there in the match, but you are using it lighter balls which needs to be caught behind the stumps. You also use certain skills which are self-paced skills, and these are the skills which generally athletes use as they decide when to execute. You might have seen most of the sprinters use these self-paced skills when they use block starts or going off the block, so that they can generate that particular speed, and they want to bring their muscles and body and mind into an action which they require during the start. So these are certain competition routines which have been advised by coaches, and the research shows that developing such routine will really help for the players who are beginners or elite athletes who are going for the bigger competitions. Now, how does this applies to us or to your athlete for that matter? The question arises. And as an athlete, you will know if you have used these routines or not, I don't know. But however, some of these routines may in fact be a very superstition. You might have seen some of the athletes, they believe in just wearing red socks or white socks, alternate shoes with different colors. So there are certain superstitious beliefs also which are being used. But if those superstitious beliefs make an athlete feel better, let it be. Don't stop them using that superstitious belief, because that belief may be one psychological aspect which can help them get into that particular routine. So certain such behaviors are also been seen which are very rigid by the athletes, but the coaches must understand that this is very important for that athlete to sink his mindset into the competition. So in case if you want to form this routine, it is better that the coach asks his athlete what is the best thing he would like to do before the competition, and let's write it down, the list of tasks required to be performed before the competition. And writing down the routine will help you compare whether the routine is as per what is been given by all elite athletes, or it requires to be changed some of these routines. And if you want to change that routine, you must inform your athlete that this needs to be changed in your routine, or something different should be tried in this routine. And we have to make that happen. And that routine should be practiced before you enter into the competition. So change of routine sometimes affects the competition. Now, what is the purpose of this competition routine? We must know why we have to make this competition routine. Actually, if you prepare this performance routine or competition routine, it provides you an optimum mindset to go into the competition, so that you can have that desired outcome which you want. It also assists your neuromuscular pathways to align your body and muscle as per the need of the skills and requirement of the competition. It also assists to develop your schema, gives you knowledge about yourself and how to develop and maintain that particular routine during your competition. And of course, pre-performance routine is a very important tool which enable you achieve your best on a consistent basis. So this is very important point, because this competition routine, once you form this routine, it helps you achieve or to give your best during your on a consistent basis. That is very important objective of this particular competition routine. Now, there are 6 components of athletes competition routine. First is risk management. Second is injury prevention, which is very important. Third is communication of coaches with their athletes. Fourth is the right nutrition before the competition. We'll talk about all these components one by one. Fifth is goal setting. What and how, on what part of your competition you are focusing? What is your goal going into this competition? And sixth is athlete development. So it is very imperative, very important that coaches should know their athletes, and they should be familiar with the routine which they had been following for so many years, and they should be able to teach their athletes about their routine which they should follow before the competition. Because once the routine goes into the toss, so as the competition. And there are very strong athletes only who can manage. If they are very mentally strong, they can manage if their routines get disturbed. So participating in sports involves a lot of risk. So the coaches must avoid certain things which are risky for the sportsman, whether it is going out for the parties before your competition, or the night prior to your competition, whether the coaches have some level of responsibilities which they should know that coaches should be concerned about their welfare of their players, and they should maintain their athletic equipment. They check their athletic equipments on the regular basis. Otherwise, there are more risk of getting involved and into the risky affairs, and they may get injured. You might have seen a lot of times there are problems with the athletes, especially who has to carry their implements, like in the case of pole vaulters who has to carry their own poles, if they don't check that pole vault poles, it might happen that they end up with the poles and there is no poles to be, shared with anyone else. The same thing is with any other throwing equipment for that matter. You might have heard about the story of Neeraj Chopra's javelin being taken away by, Pakistani javelers. So this is happening because there is more risk which can happen. There might have cases where you might have seen people or athletes who lost their luggage while in transit from one country to another country. So there are a lot of risks, and if you had prepared for these types of risks, I think you can avoid your disturbed competition routine. The second very important aspect is your injury prevention. You must know, the coach must know what is the load and intensity which he has given to his athletes before the competition, and what is the right strength training program which has been given, so that he has trained the muscles which are required to be competed at the highest level in the competition. What are the movements which he has practiced, and if he feels like intense movement or intense, sudden change of movements needs certain taping and strapping in that particular area, the coaches should ensure that, like going into the weight training programs or heavy weight training or heavy lifters, they use knee straps and wrist strapping around the joints so that they can prevent themselves from getting injured. So these small but very simple and effective things may be practiced during your competition routine. That should be part of your competition routine. Because if you fail to prevent your athletes getting injured, the talent fallout is something, a very vicious cycle, which has been seen in the age group of 10 to 12 years in our country. So if you look at this particular, slide, I think, okay. The slides are moving. Just I want to know in between because there is a monotonous thing going on. So please respond to me if slide is moving.
Yes, sir, it's moving.
Okay. So I was talking about the talent fallout, which is a very vicious cycle in today's today, and most of the athletes who are coming out of the competition stages at the age of 10 to 12 years, and this is because of early sporting experiences which they had, and the background support which they had not received, or there is most of the problems is fallout factors are because of the mismanagement of your talent pool, whether decision making ability is poor, or at this age more than 12 years or 12 years ability, most of the students are not guided properly, and most of the injuries which has happened is not been treated properly. So injury management is one of the most important and vital aspect which has been removing the talent from the talent pool. So if you have a better coaching, you are giving them proper playing time with their recovery, then I think you can manage the injury better. So higher fallout rate in the first 3 years, that is 12 to 15 years में सबसे ज़्यादा higher fallout rate देखने को मिलता है अपने country में. The most important and significant role which coach plays while giving coaching to the athletes is the communication, and most of us fails to communicate because we become so big and we become so important, felt so important as a coach, that we sometimes forget that the communication could have been a very best thing which could train your athlete. And this is very important process through which you can exchange your formal messages, whether it is common code or using some more transmissional channels where you can connect with your athletes, and it is the foundation on which the entire athlete development begins. Now, if you don't have an effective communication between the coach and the athletes, it is just like trying to play your basketball without a ball. तो बास्केटबॉल तो है पर बॉल हाथ में नहीं है, कोई भी ऐसा गेम नहीं खेलना चाहता. तो कम्युनिकेशन जो है बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट टूल होता है कोचिंग का. सो इफेक्टिव कम्युनिकेशन इज cited as a critical element for the success of any athletic team. सबसे बेस्ट अगर कोई सबसे ऊपर रखा गया है किसी चीज को कोचिंग फिलोसफी में, वो है कम्युनिकेशन विद द टीम. Now, using the right language while giving the feedback to the athlete, while demonstrating, the communication can be verbal communication, communication can be a non-verbal communication, communication in the form of signs or signals, whatever way you want to communicate. Your athlete and you should have an absolute understanding between each other, and your internal and external language which you are using for communicating with your athlete, you can use small phrases, you can use symbols, and you can use certain questions to be asked to athlete when you are giving an intense workout. And these communications is best explained in one of these books, The Language of Coaching, which has been written by D'Art and Science. So Nick Wignerman is the author of this particular book, and if you want to improve your communication skill, this is the best book available in the store. The fourth component which I talked about was the nutrition. Over the last few years or decades, the nutritional requirement of athletes is much studied and searched about. And ultimately, Indian sports and Indian coaches have realized the importance of sports nutrition. And it has long way from taking a salt tablet, which we used to do, and give it to the athletes when they felt dehydrated, to come to what is the right way of training your athletes. So nutritional training and nutritional requirement of athletes needs to be understand specific to the sports, and accordingly an athlete routine should also follow a nutritional routine or the food guide which has to be given to the athlete before the competition. Now let's understand the nutritional aspects for the athletes, because athlete's energy requirement has to be met before he enters into the competition. So during any intense exercise, if you are doing any intense exercise, your carbohydrate stored in the muscles and livers is the predominant fuel for that particular activity. But if you are going for a prolonged exercises, more than 20, 30, 40 minutes exercises, your fat stores are predominant fuel sources. And if you're a fitness level athlete, you are going into an endurance athlete, burn your fats more efficiently. Whether you are a HIIT trainer or you are a fitness athlete, then most of the energy stores have been only limited to your glycogen stores. So if you look at this particular screen, you will see two athletes who are adjacent to each other. One athlete you can see from his body type, he is well-fueled athlete, and the another athlete you can see is under-fueled athlete. So athletes should consume at least 1 to 1.5 gram per kilogram of carbohydrate immediately post exercise, and again to replace muscle glycogen stores. And if you want to prevent gradual depletion of muscle glycogen stores over the period of time of exercises, it is very important that you should have a reserves of glycogen in the form of carbohydrate been added into your dietary habit before the competition, 4 to 5 hours before the competition, so that it will help you decrease your muscle depletion or muscle breakdown. Now, which type of carbohydrates are important for an athlete before the competition? It has been suggested there are two types of carbohydrates which have been used: simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates, as you all are knowledgeable in this particular aspect. Complex carbohydrates are the most important energy sources which needs to be given to the athletes, because they are most importantly found in the starchy foods like potatoes, sweet potatoes, which can be consumed for rapid use by the muscles. And that's why these complex carbohydrates are the most important fuel source for the athletes. Now, what your pre-exercise meal should look like. You can have a banana, you can have a glass of milk, you can have egg whites, you can have dry fruits, you can have brown rice with veggies. So less hunger before and during exercises maintains optimal glycogen level. If you feel hungry before your competition, that means you are lacking in the energy level. You still lacks the amount of fuel to be added to your body. So it is recommended that you emphasize on complex carbohydrate, 1 to 4 gram per kilogram of your body weight, about 1 to 4 hours prior to your competition. That's what has been advised. And it should be avoided to eat most of this carbohydrate just prior to your competition, close to your competition, or the 1 hour or half an hour before the competition. Also, we should avoid to eat high fat diet or high protein, because it is not good for your stomach and it may upset your stomach during the competition. And this is what has been advisable before exercise. Now, there is another term which we all have learned throughout our years, and this needs to be understand: the carbohydrate loading. It has been also seen that most of the scientists have seen that if you have a good glycogen stores by 50 to 100%, which before exercise, then there are more chances that you can increase your endurance up to 20% and increase your performance by 2 to 3%. So long distance runners or endurance runners, they eat 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate. Their body requires 30 to 60 grams of carbs each hour of the intense exercises which they are doing. So if you want to go into a carbohydrate loading, it is advised that the marathon runners and other endurance athletes should use this particular technique. And body normally limits the amount of carbohydrates. If you take excess of carbohydrate, it converts that excess of carbohydrate into the fat stores. So converting excess of carbohydrate into fat reserves. So we should know what exactly the number of calories we should eat as per the body weight which we have. So carbohydrate loading is a very important method of manipulating and allowing athlete to perform and increase their carbohydrate stores. What we do for endurance athlete is 1 to 4 days of exercise. We reduce the normal training load. The volume of the training should be reduced while eating a high carbohydrate diet. By reducing the volume of training, we create a carbohydrate reserve in our body, and glycogen reserve has been created. And by doing that, then as a result, a combination of reduced training, we should reduce our training and increase our carbohydrates. We also call this particular stage as a pasta party, where the intake result is increased stores of muscle glycogen. This will help you build up your muscle glycogen. And the increased glycogen stores allows endurance athletes to use their glycogen reserves efficiently during endurance workout. Now let's talk about the protein. As I had already mentioned, we cannot take protein just before the competition because it may upset your stomach. But what has been recommended is there is 12 to 18% of your total calories should come from protein, because that is very needed for your growth and maintenance and development and muscle building food, which is required for any athlete for recovery. So it is advised that 1.2 to 1.4 gram per kilogram of your day is recommended for your endurance athlete. But if you are strength athletes, you can take 1.7 to 1.8 gram of per kilogram of your body weight, which is recommended for your strength athletes. So adequate calorie intake is just as important as adequate protein intake, because if you are lacking in protein, you will lack in the recovery process. And if you lack in recovery process, it will reduce, somewhere affect your performance. Again, we must understand we need to take protein which is exactly needed by the body and not overdo or overeat the protein, because excess protein calories are also stored as a fat and we don't want to become bulky. And excess protein intake can lead to other kidney problems. So we need protein Now, if you look at how much protein does your body require, so if you will see the normal athletic adults need 1.2 to 1.5. There have many studies uh, on runners or nutrition, and about 15 to 20 grams of protein per hour of your exercise should be enough for your protein reserves. So this is what has been required, and for the athlete to check on their protein intake before the competition. Now, there are many cases where it has also been observed that there are people or vegetarians who are unable to fulfill their protein requirements, and too little protein can lead to your iron deficiency, and you can see your reduce in the hemoglobin content is a common among the college females. And one of the studies shows that 20% volleyball and basketball players were seen in uh, one of the college where the study was done, that 20% in volleyball and basketball players, female athletes, has been seen eating less protein, 20% less protein. There were 50% soccer players been taking less protein than what is required, and 37% of the female soldiers in basic training had low ferritin. So half of the group took iron supplements. 100 mg iron ferrous sulfate supplements were given to this particular groups of the players, and that seen tremendous increase in their performance, and their performance were increases by 2 mile. The performance of running 2 miles was increased by 6 seconds faster than without taking supplements. So this is what difference can be made by right amount of protein and intake which has been advised for the athletes. Now let's talk about the major source of energy, that is fat. And it has been seen that 25 to 30% of your total calories which are required by the athletes should come from your fat. Less than 10% of total calories should be from the saturated fats, and that's what has been needed when you are going for a competition. So if you look at your endurance athletes, some of the research says that to increase your fat burning capacity of the muscle, is that what you can reduce your glycogen, and that's where the keto diets had come into existence for training your athletes, or most of the scientists been using the keto diets, whether most of the dietic habits have been or dietary supplements have been taken from the fats. So marathoners are advised to load their bodies with fat instead of carbs. Yes, they need carbs or glycogen reserve for the instant energy which they require, but in the longer runs and which goes more than 30 minutes to 40 minutes, they require their fat reserve, and their body has been built up in such a way that they utilize fats in a very easy manner. The person like us who don't go for marathons may not burn the fat in so that effective way in the way the marathoners can use. So it is advised now, new studies says that it is better to increase the fat burning capacity of the muscles, and there has to be a fat intake by the marathon runners before they go for their marathon runs. Now I am skipping this because most of you knows how to prepare your dietary plan for your body weight as per your body weight. So I will move on to the next very important aspect, is fluids, because we are running short of the time and we have a lot of slides to discuss. Now fluids is very important, because whenever you if you are an endurance athlete, you need to see that your body is not dehydrated, and you also need to frequently urinate during the competitions. So it all depends on what amount of fluid you take, depends on what is your weight of the body before and after an hour of exercise, without drinking anything, at what intensity you are working out, and what is the degree of heat and cold in which you are running. So depending on those aspects, your fluid intakes are dependent. Now, if you will see scientifically, it has been seen that target intake of 60 to 90 gram of carbohydrate per hour of extended exercises. So suppose you are an intense exerciser or an athlete who compete at the highest level, he should be able to drink or intake of 60 to 90 gram of carbohydrate per hour of extended exercises. Now, some part of this carbohydrates comes from the sports drinks or gels, which is a very convenient sports drinks which are available in the markets, and helps you boost your energy immediately. The second thing is you also take fluids in the form of electrolytes. The body lose some of the potential salts like potassium, sodium or magnesium or calcium, which are very readily available in pre and post exercise foods. Most recreational exercises don't sweat out that much, but if you are training at that highest level, during every exercises bout of exercises, you must follow a 3 ounce per 10 minutes rule. So if you are a very intense athlete who are competing at the intense level, you should remember 3 ounce per 10 minutes rule. Now 1 ounce is equal to 20 around 30 ml, and that means if you have to consume 3 ounce, you must consume 90 ml of water, and 90 ml of water is just 1 cup of one glass water. So this is what has been required for an intense exerciser or a competitive athletes who are playing. So before exercise, you must have a 16 to 24 ounce of water. During exercise, you can have 3 to 6 ounces of water, depending on an interval of 10 to 15 minutes. And after exercise, you must rehydrate your body with 8 to 10 ounce within 30 minutes after the exercise. So this is what has been recommended. And if you want to know more about hydration of your body, I had already given a source in one of my books, and the rate of perspiration can also be calculated for each athlete by studying the details which I had given in my book. Now, there is a very important thing which we must know, because most of the athletes lose their competition or medals just by a whisker because they were dehydrated while they were performing. And in most of the extreme cases, they lose their 2% of your body weight while you are already been dehydrated. There are most of the athletes who lose the competitions because of the cramps. They are thirsty, and your performance level deteriorates by 10% if you are dehydrated. So dehydrated athletes has to be monitored very carefully by the coaches. They should study the sign and symptoms of their athletes. And that's why it is said that fuel well is the very important mantra before going into the competition. Now, this rise to one of the concepts which all of us should know is relative energy deficiency in sports. Because if you don't fuel well, there are most of the times we can enter into a condition called REDS. And REDS is relative energy deficiency in sports. And it is actually a condition where a person has gone into an energy deficiency with adverse effect on all body systems. So when you are deficient in the energy intake or the fuel intake which is required by the body for that particular athlete for that particular moment, then you will that will affect most of your vital body systems. And as an effect, the male and female athletes have more dangers of not performing at their highest level. Now, what is the risk of REDS? So if you enter into the REDS, relative energy deficiency syndrome, you may emphasize your figure appearance. Most of the athletes who are into figure appearance, wrestling, who needs to go for a weighing before their competitions, or you might have seen boxers losing weight before the competition because they want to reduce their body weight to bring them into a consideration weight category. Most of the weight category events or figure athletes follow these type of routines, and they enter into REDS and lose on in the later, the side effect. As a result of side effects, you might have seen these athletes been underperformed during the highest level of competition. And wrestlers are the most affected by this particular REDS, relative energy deficiency. The second most athletes who are facing REDS is rowers or kayaks. Those who are endurance athletes of 1500 meter or 800 meters, and most of the cyclists been affected by the reds. Now, what and how it affects an athlete, relative energy deficiency? It affects the athletes tremendously, because very variable things happens in the athlete's body when the energy intake and energy output, there is no balance between these two aspects. Now, it as a result of lack of energy or the fuel intake which an athlete should have done, there is an impaired growth and development, and the recovery of muscle is been delayed. It affects the endocrine system tremendously, and there is a poor repair and regeneration of tissues and cells after a strength training or bout of strength training you have done, and it might lead to your stress fractures sometimes. There has been seen in female athletes, if they lack in the fuel intake, there is a more disturbed menstrual cycles been noticed. Uh, Most of the athletes after doing an intense workout will feel joint pains and muscle aching even after the bout of exercise. Their inability to achieve maximum adaptation to training, maximum adaptation of training will not take place. Optimal body composition will be disturbed, and energy excess, increased fat stores and body weight. So in fact, this also happens if you are lacking in the fuel store or glycogen reserves. So whatever glycogen you are taking additional after that will convert into the fat, and as a result your fat stores in the body will increase. So these are certain effects of relative energy deficiency in sports. So why it matters so much? Whenever the athletes, you can see out of this particular graph, can you see this graph? Hello, can you see this graph?
Hello.
Yeah, can you see this graph?
Yeah, sir. Please continue.
So if you look at the Rett syndrome, it affects growth and development. It affects your overall health and well-being, and of course, for athletes, it disturbs their performance. If you look at this two particular graph, there is a range of two important, athletes. Two types of athletes will be given. At the x-axis, there is an performance against, training load, intensity, and the time taken for, doing that particular activity. Now, as the Reds athlete, you will see been shown in the red line, which curves down very intensely, is because of they don't have an energy to carry on that particular exercises with that particular intensity for the given particular given time. But if there is a proper energy balanced athlete, he can perform with that particular task with the same intensity and vigor for the given time. So this is what the difference is when you have underfueled athlete before the competition. So it is very important aspect that your athlete is well fueled before going into the competition. So it has to be taken very seriously that nutrition should be a part of your routine. The fifth very important component which I had discussed today was train your thinking and mindset for the competition. And training your mindset for the competition is that you had prepared hard for so many years, you had worked physically, but if your mind has not been worked, or you had not worked on your mental ability, it is very challenge. It is a bigger challenge to manage your thinking at the time of competition. So if you look at this particular slide, this tells you about your attitude about while going into competition. What you see yourself in the mirror is what you are going to perform in the competition. So thinking is all about what you say to yourself. So if you feel like I am going there just to participate and I am unable to compete with all other athletes, you've already done your bit. So it is very important that what mindset you are going into the competition. You might have seen the coach Indian hockey team has blasted out on the players saying that you were lacking in your energy during your final match, and as a result you had already seen defeated by yourself, and that's what has happened. It has resulted in 7-0 loss to Australia. So training your thinking and mindset for the competition is very important. Even if Indian women's team lost their semi-final, the coach of that particular team kept them motivated even after that loss because of the officiating glitch which has happened in that particular match. So I have to remind you the two very important aspects which are contradictory to each other. At one aspect, the Indian hockey men's team has lost because they had gone into that particular match with a mindset and a casual approach, which has resulted in the 7-0 loss. And at the other hand, the women team wants to prove their mental and they want to win that medal. And look at the result, even after they lose the semifinals because of the problems which has happened in the officiating, they still came out as a bronze medalist. So this is the difference in the mindset which can cause you a medal and which can cause you your performance. Now, another very important thing which links to your mindset is neuroplasty. Now, neuroplasty is very important concept, and it refers to your brain's ability to adapt and rearrange as we experience and learn different tasks. So अपना ब्रेन जब भी हम एक्टिविटी करते हैं, नई चीजें करते हैं, तो उसके अंदर का जो नर्वस सिस्टम है, द न्यूरॉन्स which transmits stimuli from one part of the body to another part of the body, creates such wiring system which becomes stronger as a result of hard practice or a number of repetitions which we perform for that particular skill. So whenever your mind and your positive thinking, you are practicing your mind for that positive thinking and self-belief, this rearrangement of your nervous system happens every time, and it helps you perform in a proficient way. Your movements get better. So you might have known that the first signal has been sent to the brain and brain sends signal to the muscles. So as a result, if you train your brain, you also train your muscles. Okay, it is very important that you also train your brain for that particular movement which you want to execute during the competition. So you might have seen athletes doing a self-talk. You might have seen athletes performing their skills in their brain, and that's where training could be optimized using principles of neuroplasty. And this is the most researched topic nowadays, and most of the coaches are working on these concepts. I can give you certain examples. You might have seen that an athlete who was not able to lift a weight of 170 kg in a snatch on the first attempt, second attempt, but by practicing and mentally preparing that particular athlete by their coaches, on the third attempt he is able to successfully lift the same weight. You might have also seen certain weightlifters who had not been used to lift the weight in their practice, or the best they had performed earlier was 160 kg, but during the competition they were able to come out as a winner with 70 kg weight lift, and this 10 kg different they will be able to adjust by their planning and training their mental activity and brain so that their muscle and motor units fires together to achieve that particular result. So you can see n number of results been coming which we had never thought of because of these techniques being used by the coaches. Now, there are three parts to every performance routine. If we can align these three parts in any of our athletes, we will always come up as winners. It is thoughts which needs to be better for the athlete. It is the action which he has to perform should be in sync with their thoughts. And the third is sequencing these two is very much required. Now, thoughts means the behavioral aspect of an athlete. The task specific behavior should be shown by the athlete. This way you will stimulate the neuromuscular pathways for which are needed for that particular skill. Now, for example, you practice putts in a pre-performance routine used for golfers. You might have seen cricket batsmen practice hitting the balls or hitting the hook shot if he has to face a pace bowler, or practicing the spin bowlers, hitting the spin bowlers before coming onto the ground. So this is the consistent set of behaviors which we need to, more successfully practice before the competitions. We must avoid our brain deviating from the competition behavior. So whenever an athlete deviates from their routines, they are less accurate either, or they are underperformers. They miss their medals by just seconds or few minutes. Second aspect was cognition. Cognition means you must teach athlete that they should see, then they should decide, and then they should execute. So this is the sequence of how your brain should be trained to see the things, how it comes to you. Then they should decide what is the intensity and level they have to perform, and how they should perform execution of that particular set. So what your situation demands and what is your desired outcome has to be taught to the athlete beforehand, because if you don't teach them, sometimes they are more excited and they miss the medals. For example, you may need to consolidate after the opposition are on top. Sometimes you might have seen badmintons or in some of the team games in handball, the team game like handball, it is such a fast-paced game. You might have seen your opponent is up 1 or 2 goals they had scored are more than what your team has, and you may need to show some type of aggression, and that's where you raise your game. You see the situation, the demand of the situation is there, and according to that demand you raise your performance and level. And once you shown aggression, you saw the result that you were able to draw the match. So this is cognition or the adjustment of the brain as per the demand of the situation, which needs to be part of your training regime for the your athletes. Now, while before going into the competition, there are 2-3 things which I want to tell all the coaches is warm up the vision system. They're very important that some of the elite coaches had been mentioned in their books that warming up the vision system is very important. Whether it is quick eye-hand reaction drills, which has to be given, such drills that requires athletes to focus near to far and far to near, like shifting their gears from one target to another. If you had seen in track and field, they come into the motion very quickly. So they practice before going into the sprints. They go on the block start again and again, and they try and accelerate their body so that and after 20 to 30 meters, they run relaxed with their long strides. So quick eye-hand reaction drills are very important, whether it is giving a catching drills to the cricketers, whether it is some eye tracking exercises like turning and catching the ball, or identifying and catching the ball, or moving on the direction where the call has come. So look at some quick identifying ball or flight, or some stimulus which can be auditory, which can be visual, which should be given to the players beforehand as an part of your warming session going before the game. So this can really generate their brain and vision system which is required during the competition. Training the eyes to lead the body to better performance. You might have seen during this Birmingham that Commonwealth Games that many of the fumbles happened during relay competitions. I don't know how many of you've seen this 4 into 100 meter relays or 4 into 400 relays. There are a lot of fumbles which has happened while exchanging the baton, and this is because they are not trained their eyes to lead to the body for better performance. Sometimes we keep on practicing with their own players, but when we lose sight of what we have to perform staying within the lane, sometimes over aggression or over seeing something may leads to such type of blunder. So the process where you can identify and organize and you can interpret your sensory cues in order to understand what is happening in our environment, because sometimes the athletes are so much engrossed within their own skills that they don't know what is lying behind, what is You might have seen some of the long jumpers, they stumble with some of the water bottles which are set on the routine or route where they have to run. Sometimes it also happens that one of the athletes had not came out of the pit and the another athlete had started running towards the long jump pit. So these type of moments happens because they had not trained their eyes to lead their body for better performance. They should be taught that what is around you, you also have to engross in that environment where you are going to perform. That is very important part of your cognition drills. So there are 3 mental training skills which needs to be done before the competition routine or practice the competition routine with the athletes. First is confidence, second is concentration, and third is composure. These 3 C's must be tackled for as a part of your mental training skills, which needs to be included with the athletes. The confidence to know you got what it takes to reach the podium. You should develop that confidence in your athlete, because the confident athlete performs better and they shows better results even if they are underdogs. Better concentration and focus to control the the control levels. There are certain times whether we had seen that you might have seen one of the concentration which PV Sindhu has failed in the previous competition, where she lost the entire semi-finals because she lost her control over the game because one of the officials has given a wrong serve when she was performed the service, and she lost her cool. And thereafter, even if she was leading by 17-15, the score was tied up by 17-17, and after that 21-17, and she lost the match and she was out of the tournament, resulting in bronze medal. So that's where the concentration has to be it has to be taught to the player before the competition. And you might have seen more composed and controlled PV Sindhu in the Birmingham and see the results. So composure is to find the right intensity level and right aggression level which is needed for that particular game. So motivating and over aggression, or if you lose the composure, you can lose the game or lose the results. So mental training for athletes with these 3 C's are very important. Now, to control composure, we also tell or we also use three techniques in sports psychology. It is imagery, self-talk, and recognition and replace. Imagery is a technique where we visualize the success in your upcoming competition. When you have visualize entire thing in your mind, you might have seen Sachin Tendulkar using imagery technique while Shane Warne has challenged him. He visualize how Shane Warne balls, and the entire night he practices that particular spot where he is going to bowl, and he rearranged that particular environment, and after that he was able to successfully hit Shane Warne for 6 and had scored runs against him. So what you imagine and how you imagine in your mind to overcome that particular competition and the opponents is what is going to prepare yourself for that particular competition. The second technique which has been used is self-talk, where athletes talk to themselves, come on, chal yaar, and he boosts up his thoughts and feelings, and he can really get into the action, what results he wants from that particular action. So self-talk is an amazing technique because if you choose what you want to talk to yourself, you can also dump some of the bad thoughts by self-talking. So throughout your mind trash what is there, the negative feelings, by using the self-talk technique. And recognize and replace, how you can replace your brain with your positive things is very important, because replacing your negativity with your positivity is very important. And once you can be able to know this technique of recognizing what is bad and replacing it with the positive things and feelings, makes you better athlete. So these are 3 important techniques which a coach should tell their students. And it has been proven through certain experiments where 14 athletes were undertook, and they were given they were all endurance athletes, and they were cycling 10 kilometers cyclists, and they were given, one of the group was given neutral talk and another group was given motivational talk. And the group which was given a motivational talk, positive talks, has done better than the group which was given a neutral talk. So this says that the self-talk and positive talks been given to the athletes before competition affects them a lot. Okay. Now, what are the advantages of competition routine? We will end up with the 1 or 2 slides which are left. Competition routines are very important because it sets the athlete in the right mindset which they need to perform in that particular routine. The competition routine also gives creates a task specific behavior, and their behavior becomes automatic in that particular competition situation. You might have seen certain athletes are so focused during the competition, and whenever the competition gets over, they are very different athletes. And it creates a feeling of confidence and concentration, control when they are into the competition. And a sound routine, a systematic routine which has been practiced by the athlete for throughout the years, they eliminate the mistakes which they make and keeps athlete engaged, and they are able to tackle their pressures. So pre-competition routine are very important, whether it is mental routine by listening to the music or a self-talk, whether it is a warm-up which they do, whether packing of their equipment is required, or avoiding the injuries. Now, few of the competition routines which is very important is you sleep well, you fuel well, and you relax well. So these are certain routines which have been practiced by most of the athletes. And I think the last thing which I want to mention here is inverted U theory, which needs to be remembered. Because if you fuel well, if you sleep well, and if you practice well, you might know that your competition routine also sets you into a certain performance stages where it can control your arousal. And inverted U theory says that as your arousal increases, or your stimulus increases, your performance increases to an optimal level. But if your arousal is more aggressive, more than what is required, then your performance goes down. So if your arousal is more, your aggression is more, your performance goes down. So low arousal results in poor performance, because your attention, if you are moderate arousal, you have chances of optimal performance because your attention level increases. And if you have high arousal, again, you have a poor performance because your attention level decreases or narrows down. So this is what inverted U theory says. So my dear friends, as in coaches, it is up to you that what outcome you want is the result of E and R. That is, whatever your events are, according to you, that those events, whatever responses you give will result in your outcome. So you can blame the event for your lack of results, or you can lack of results or outcomes, but you can simply change your responses to whatever events or competitions which comes to your way. The way things are until you get the outcome. So agar aapko positive outcome chahiye, aapko you want to need some outcomes which you desired, you simply needs to change your responses to those outcomes. So once again, I am really thankful to all the organizers who had given me opportunity to talk to more than 2,000 participants on this platform. Thanks once again, and I will be very happy to take the questions quickly. Over to Dr. Naren.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, so it was really a very wonderful presentation. So, like, as we can see in the chat box, like many positive response are there from participants, and very, I want to say, like, brief everything with lot of example, with lot of situations from current Commonwealth Games, and it makes really a fruitful. Thank you so much, sir. And then definitely I would ask participants, if you have anything to be discussed with our expert, if you have any question to be taken up, please write in question answer section. Sir, with your permission, shall we take few questions?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Signed up?
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, sir. You also can see in the question answer section that the participant Munir, he asked that what may be the issue to an individual or a sports person who does not. Just 1 second, sir.
Yeah, so many.
Yeah. Who does not maintain his ideal weight. I mean, like he may be talking about the fitness.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, this is one question been asked many times, Mr. Munir. The people who are not having an ideal weight. Now, first thing is you must, as a coach, must know what is the athlete's body's requirement for that particular competition or for that particular sports. Like for example, I am from handball and studying the anthropometry of handballers. For that matter, we know that if someone who is playing at the center or backcourt player, we need a person with a 90 kg of weight. And if he's underweight, then we have certain results and there are problems while defending. So either we replace that player with a heavyweight player who can do a better defense, or otherwise we have to work on his relative strength so that he can overcome other athletes who are more in weight by relatively showing his relative strength which is required for that particular matter. But there are certain cases where weight is very important, and weight categories can affect the performance, whether it is wrestling, whether it is boxing, or weight category athletes for that matter. And there we cannot compromise the underweighing athletes. So if desired weight is required there, we should take help of your nutritionist and dietitians for that matter, who can really help you gain weight. We have to gain weight without gaining the fat. That is very important.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Sir, one question is in chat box, like what is RED? The meaning of RED.
Okay. I think he might have missed that particular slide, but Redd's syndrome, which we had explained, is a relative energy deficiency syndrome. And it has been explained that whenever an athlete who is going into the competition or going into an exercise, if he is lacking in that particular energy or deficiency of energy, suppose your energy requirement is 2000 calories per day, but you are taking 1800 calories, means you are deficient by 200 calories. So it works like a battery. आपने देखा होगा सेल में या बैटरी अगर चार्ज नहीं है, आपका लैपटॉप पूरा चार्ज नहीं है, तो वो ज्यादा देर तक काम नहीं करेगा. उसी तरह से एंड्योरेंस एथलीट्स हैं या इंटेंसिटी वाले एथलीट्स हैं, उनको अगर डेफिशिएंट एनर्जी में है, तो वो अगर उस पूरे गेम का परफॉर्मेंस के हिसाब से वो परफॉर्म नहीं कर पाएंगे. 60 मिनट्स के लिए परफॉर्मेंस उसी इंटेंसिटी से नहीं दे पाएंगे. So such athletes needs to be changed immediately. या आप उसको substitute करते हैं तो करिए.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. The next question is what quantity of carbohydrate required?
I got your question. I am reading that question. Yeah. See, the amount of carbohydrates already mentioned is depends on the strength athlete to endurance athlete to more marathoners. The requirement of carbohydrate as per intense athletes I had mentioned is 1.2 to 1.4 gram of carbohydrate per kilogram of your body weight. So if suppose your body weight is 80 kg, then you multiply 80 with 1.4 grams, around 100 and इतना आपको कार्बोहाइड्रेट पर आवर ऑफ योर इंटेंस एक्सरसाइज आपको कंज्यूम करना है. तो आपको जब कार्बोहाइड्रेट आप जब अच्छा इंटेंस वर्कआउट करते हैं तो उसके 1 घंटे के अंदर आपको इस फार्मूले के हिसाब से कार्बोहाइड्रेट को इंटेक करना है, 1.2 to 1.4 ग्राम ऑफ कार्बोहाइड्रेट पर किलोग्राम ऑफ योर बॉडी. So it will help you deplete your stop depleting your muscles.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Sir, the next question is from participant Angad Kumar Gaur. So,
Yes,
how to
what is-
calculate carb, protein, and fat for basketball?
No, that is not only for basketball, for everyone. I think that would have been in another session if I have to take. Angad, you can get in touch with me. I will be surely explaining this to you. But it will take time because it will be not possible for me to take it on the online session because I have to go on an offline mode and using that mode as to making you understand how to use that.
Yeah, thank you. Sir, the next question is, how do we...
Just a minute. अविनाश, मैं एक सेशन में हूँ, ई खेल पाठशाला में कॉल बैक कर रहा हूँ. Yeah, Naren, very sorry.
Yeah, it's okay, sir. Sir, the next question is, how do we start pre-game routine in practice?
Very good question. This is a question which is relevant. See, that's what I was been talking about. Pre-game routine, coach nahi banayega. He has to discuss it with athlete, और athlete और coach मिलकर एक pre-game routine बनाते हैं. Like suppose I am doing it with my daughter right now. She has to go for a West Zone competition. तो मैं उससे हमेशा बात करता हूँ, बेटा एक रूटीन बना लो, अपना सारा इक्विपमेंट चेक कर लो, स्विमिंग के सारे गियर रख लो, अपना स्विमिंग कॉस्ट्यूम है कि नहीं वो देख लो. You keep one piece of apple and banana in your lunch box so that you can consume that 1 hour before the competition. है ना? You do certain warm ups and stretches. फिर आप अपना वाटर के अंदर घुसकर थोड़ा सा अपना बॉडी के टेम्परेचर को पानी के साथ एडजस्ट कर लीजिए. Similar type of routines has to be made with an athlete, asking him what he likes to do before the competition, whether it is preparing his equipments, whether it is eating the right food which is required. There are few athletes I had seen eating food which is good in or sugary foods for that matter. They like eating sweets. There are certain people who likes to drink milk before going to the competition, or there are athletes who wants to eat a banana or a fruit before going to the competition. So whatever adjusts with his body, you need to fuel him well. You need to see that that particular athlete has rested well. You need to prepare him for a positive talk, maybe a song, maybe a positive talk, maybe a pep talk, which can help him, perform better in the competition. So this routine has to be practiced, and you see that what applies best and consistently on your athlete.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The next question, sir, बहुत काफी क्वेश्चन सर हिंदी में आ रहे हैं सर.
हाँ जी.
सर जो एक मंजीत करके हमारे एक पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं, उन्होंने बोला एथलीट के लिए पर डे जो प्रोटीन का कुछ रिकमेंडेशन है, आपने स्लाइड्स में भी बताया था, तो एक बार अगर उसको बता देंगे दोबारा प्लीज.
सर देखिए, प्रोटीन ग्रोथ और रिपेयर के लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. तो प्रोटीन जब भी इंटेक करना है कंपटीशन के 5 या 6 घंटे पहले करना है, इससे पहले नहीं करना है, क्योंकि प्रोटीन जब भी आप लेंगे तो ये डाइजेस्ट जल्दी नहीं होता. प्रोटीन टेक्स लॉन्गर टाइम टू डाइजेस्ट एंड गेट इनटू द बॉडी. तो प्रोटीन 5 घंटे पहले लें. 1.2 से 1.4 ग्राम पर किलोग्राम ऑफ बॉडी वेट प्रोटीन ले सकते हैं आप. आपका बॉडी वेट अगर 60 kg है तो इनटू मल्टीप्लाई बाय 1.4 कर दीजिए, तो आपको 72 ग्राम प्रोटीन लेना है. तो 72 ग्राम प्रोटीन आप एक बार में नहीं खा सकते. यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस. आपको प्रोटीन कुछ टाइम पीरियड पे लेना पड़ेगा. आपको ब्रेकफास्ट में कुछ प्रोटीन लेना पड़ेगा, आपको कुछ प्रोटीन की मात्रा आपको लंच में लेना पड़ेगी, और कुछ प्रोटीन की मात्रा आपको इवनिंग स्नैक्स में लेना पड़ेगी. इस तरह से आप 3 या 4 भागों में प्रोटीन को बांट के लीजिए. एक बार में 10 या 20 ग्राम से ज्यादा प्रोटीन नहीं खाना.
यस सर, थैंक यू. सर एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन हम लेंगे. जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स ने बोला है कि कंपटीशन से पहले पानी जो एटलीस्ट को पीना चाहिए, उसका कुछ अमाउंट रिकमेंडेशन है या प्लीज सर.
जी. See, I had already mentioned जो एंड्योरेंस एथलीट्स हैं या जो इंटेंस एथलीट्स हैं, उनको जो अमाउंट ऑफ वाटर पीना है वो 3 to 6 आउंस बताया है, और 6 to 9 आउंस फॉर प्री एक्सरसाइज बताया है। तो 3 आउंस या 6 आउंस से 9 आउंस का मतलब ये हो गया कि आप अगर कंपटीशन में जा रहे हैं तो उसके 1 घंटा 2 घंटा पहले से आपको कंपटीशन तक 6 आउंस तक का पानी पी लेना है। 6 आउंस यानी 1 आउंस का मतलब है 30 ml। 30 ml यानी अगर ग्लास में डालेंगे तो इतना पानी हो गया, ठीक है। तो 30 ml अगर पानी है तो 30 ml पानी को आप थोड़े थोड़े सिप में पीना है, एक साथ नहीं पीना है, ताकि अदरवाइज इट में हर्ट योर स्टमक व्हाइल यू आर रनिंग। तो आपको पानी जो है इकट्ठा नहीं पीना है, थोड़ा थोड़ा करके पीना है, और ऐसे 6 आउंस पानी आपको कंपटीशन से पहले पहले पी लेना है। एंड यू ऑलवेज रिमेंबर दैट यू शुड यूरिनेट बिफोर द कंपटीशन, क्योंकि जब कंपटीशन में जा रहे हैं और इतना पानी पी के जा रहे हैं तो यू शुड फ्लश आउट व्हाट यू हैड ड्रिंक। तो कंपटीशन के दौरान व्हेन यू आर गोइंग इनटू द कंपटीशन, एवरी आवर ऑफ इंटेंस कंपटीशन यू शुड ड्रिंक 3 आउंस रूल। मैंने आपको बताया था 3 आउंस रूल। कंपटीशन के दौरान 3 आउंस रूल का हमेशा आपको यूज करना है। 3 आउंस रूल, 3 आउंस का मतलब होता है 90 ml, वो भी थोड़े थोड़े घुट में। एक घुट में आप 30 ml से ज्यादा नहीं पीना चाहिए। और पानी को डायरेक्ट नहीं पीना है, मुंह में घुमाना है थोड़ा और फिर पीना है।
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, we have time limitation, so we could not take all the questions. So participants, we really sorry for that, and we understand that there are many questions that we can take, and like Ashish Pulkar sir had mentioned, like he will be maybe taking up all those questions. We'll write to sir, and they will try to get the answer, and then we'll get back to you. So thank you, participants, for making this interactive session at the end. And again, sir, I would, sir, would you please stop sharing your slides?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Yeah. So, sir, thank you so much on behalf of Ministry of Education, on behalf of Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India, on behalf of Sport Authority of India, Khelo India, and the entire organizing team from Khelo India and Sai LNCP Trivandrum, on behalf of our principal, sir, Dr. G. Kishore, I, Dr. Narendra Gangwar, would take this privilege to thank you for this wonderful and very informative session that you have delivered on competition routine. Sir, thank you so much on behalf of everybody present in the session. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you once again for giving this opportunity. It was a wonderful session and wonderful audience who had asked so many questions. So it was very good to know that people were attentive.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And participants, once again, thank you to everybody for taking up a lot of questions and making it interactive. And it is your all interest that makes a speaker motivated throughout the session. So thank you once again for being interactive, and thank you. And now there are a few announcements that we will have our second session at 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. today. And there will be no session tomorrow as per the schedule. We have a holiday. Dear participants, a poll has been launched to get the feedback about the session. Please provide your valuable feedback on the session. And please follow the schedule that we have shared with you all on your registered email ID so that there will be no miscommunication. And if any rescheduling will be there, we will inform you well in advance. Thank you, and try to be regular in all the session, because there will be a attendance that will be marked for providing your participation certificate, as well as it will be considered for your examination purpose as well. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you in afternoon session that will start exactly at 3 p.m. बहुत सारे लोग बोल रहे हैं पोल नहीं आया है। पोल लॉन्च कर दिया गया है। आप देखिए, आपकी स्क्रीन पे एक ऑप्शन आ रहा होगा, आप उस पोल में पार्टिसिपेट करिए। आपका फीडबैक बहुत वैल्यूएबल है हमारे लिए, हमारे प्रोग्राम के लिए। आप एक बार चेक करिए, आपका स्क्रीन पे एक पोल लॉन्च हुआ है, उसमें क्वेश्चंस हैं, आप उनको अटेम्प्ट करिए। Dear participants, regarding afternoon session, we'll be having session on the very interesting topic, ethics and decision making in sports and physical education. And the speaker will be Dr. K.K. Sau, Associate Professor from Lakshmibai National University of Physical Education, Gwalior. तो वो एथिक्स एंड डिसीजन मेकिंग पे बात करेंगे। बहुत अच्छा सेशन है, आप सभी से रिक्वेस्ट है प्लीज ज्वाइन करें 3 PM to 4:30 PM. We are expecting you to be in the session at 2:45. Thank you once again, everyone. पार्टिसिपेंट्स, हम पीपीटी शेयर नहीं करेंगे, आपके साथ सारे हैंडआउट शेयर करेंगे जो आपको पीडीएफ फाइल में मिलेंगे, आपके हिंदी में भी मिलेंगे, एंड यू विल गेट द नोट्स, ऑल द हैंडआउट्स इन इंग्लिश एज वेल फॉर योर फ्यूचर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, एंड देन यू कैन यूटिलाइज फॉर एग्जामिनेशन पर्पज एज वेल। आपको पीपीटी हम लोग शेयर नहीं करेंगे, देयर आर सम कंटेंट राइट्स आर देयर, सो पीपीटी नहीं हम लोग शेयर कर सकते हैं, बट यस पीडीएफ फाइल में हम आपको सारे नोट प्रोवाइड करेंगे, हिंदी और इंग्लिश दोनों लैंग्वेज में। पीडीएफ डाउनलोड करने का लिंक आपकी ईमेल, रजिस्टर्ड ईमेल आईडी पे आ जाएगा, और आपने जो मोबाइल नंबर रजिस्टर किया है उस पर आपको एक एसएमएस आएगा, टेक्स्ट मैसेज, उसके थ्रू आप पीडीएफ डाउनलोड कर पाएंगे। हम लोग आपको एडवांस में इन्फॉर्म कर देंगे, आपको ईमेल आ जाएगा, आपको एक टेक्स्ट मैसेज भी आ जाएगा, उसमें लिंक रहेगा, वहां से आप जाकर अपना पीडीएफ डाउनलोड कर सकते हैं, एंड आप उसका एग्जाम की तैयारी भी कर सकते हैं। इवन सर्टिफिकेट के लिए भी हम आपको आपका रजिस्टर्ड ईमेल आईडी और जो मोबाइल नंबर है उस पर आपको लिंक भेजेंगे, वहां से आप पार्टिसिपेशन सर्टिफिकेट डाउनलोड कर पाएंगे, और एग्जाम का जितना भी डिटेल है वो आपको बहुत पहले से एडवांस में बता दिया जाएगा। आपको एग्जाम का सारा रजिस्ट्रेशन कैसे करना है, सारी डिटेल आपको एक पीडीएफ प्रोवाइड की जाएगी, जिसके थ्रू आप अच्छे से रजिस्ट्रेशन कर पाएंगे, और कोई भी प्रॉब्लम होगी देन देयर विल बी अ कॉन्टेक्ट नंबर एंड ईमेल आईडी, वहां पे आप कॉन्टेक्ट कर सकते हैं। एग्जाम का डेट एंड टाइम अभी कोर्स के बाद हम लोग डिसाइड ऑलरेडी हो गया है, बट कोर्स के बाद आपको हम इंटीमेट कर देंगे डेट जो एग्जाम का होगा। यस, ऑनलाइन एग्जाम होगा, दैट विल बी मल्टीपल चॉइस क्वेश्चंस, 4 ऑप्शंस होंगे हर एक क्वेश्चन का, एंड जो भी आपको सेशन अटेंड कर रहे हैं सारे सेशन से आपको क्वेश्चंस मिलेंगे इसमें। कल क्लास नहीं है, टुमारो इज हॉलीडे, देयर विल बी नो सेशन टुमारो, विल हैव अ नेक्स्ट सेशन ऑन 12th, डे आफ्टर टुमारो। परसों हमारा क्लास होगा, कल हमारा क्लास नहीं है हॉलीडे की वजह से, तो प्लीज आप लोग ज्वाइन ना करें, आप 12th को ज्वाइन करें डे आफ्टर टुमारो प्लीज। थैंक यू।